Welcome, fellow leaders, to today's explainer. Look, if you're feeling the whiplash of today's utterly chaotic market environment, I promise you, you are not alone. We're all operating in this landscape where the ground is literally constantly shifting right beneath our feet. Today, we're taking a CIO's perspective on exactly how to scale digital strategy when everything around us is in this constant state of flux. Because this isn't just about surviving the chaos, right? It's about systematically turning that disruption into our absolute greatest competitive advantage. Let's get into it. But first, we really need to face a harsh reality. A staggering 78% of respondents in a recent study revealed that their company's very survival depends entirely on their digital transformation capabilities. I mean, wow, this is a massive wake-up call for us. Digital strategy, it's no longer just an optional upgrade or some fun side project for the IT department. For the vast majority of us, if we fail to execute on digital, our enterprises simply will not survive, period. So what's the actual enemy we're facing out there? Well, it's structural chaos, defined perfectly by the acronym VUCA: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. We are in an era where disruption is just hitting us from every conceivable angle. We've got new competitors, totally changing talent requirements, ever-evolving customer expectations, and frequent global regulatory shifts. The velocity and variety of this change, it's completely unprecedented. And because of this, that old adage that big is beautiful is officially dead. Actually, scratch that. Massive, slow-moving organizations aren't just dead, they are prime targets for disruption. Which leads us to a highly provocative paradigm shift. Some experts even argue that VUCA is the end of strategy. Now, let's just pause on that for a second. The end of strategy? It basically means the traditional, top-down, rigid strategic planning that we all learned in business school simply does not work anymore. The traditional flow of action, going neatly from strategy down to execution, can actually be counterproductive in such a wildly dynamic environment. To bring some order to all this chaos, we're going to walk through a structured blueprint with 5 critical pillars: surviving the VUCA reality, unifying the customer experience, shifting to emergent architecture, rewiring legacy organizational culture, and finally, leading through unpredictable shocks. This is our playbook. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, surviving the VUCA reality. We're talking dynamic strategies and micro approaches here. Bridging the execution gap we're seeing requires a total shakeup of the status quo. There is a massive gap right now between the potential of our digital investments and the actual business impact we're seeing. The crucial realization is this: digital strategy isn't just about rolling out new software, it's about intelligence. The velocity, volume, and sheer variety of data available to us today present unprecedented opportunities. We're talking about real one-to-one personalization for customers and radically improved internal decision-making. Add in the massive potential of AI and machine learning, and it becomes crystal clear. Digital strategy is, fundamentally, a data strategy. Real-time intelligence just has to be the foundation of any scalable operation we build. And this brilliantly illustrates the new mindset. Think of modern strategy not as a straight, predictable line, but as an airplane aileron. Just as those tiny flaps on an airplane wing adjust the flight path literally thousands of times every single minute, our strategy requires real-time dynamic resource allocation to drive long-term enterprise scalability. You have to make continuous changes as you execute. Modern strategy is messy, guys. Oftentimes, a clear picture of your strategy emerges only when you look back and connect the dots. Moving right along to Section 2, unifying the customer experience, we have got to move away from silos to entirely frictionless journeys. As technology leaders, we know all too well that failing to integrate our legacy platforms creates incredibly frustrating silos for our customers. To avoid massive customer churn, we must deliver an intuitive, frictionless journey. So here's your tactical checklist. First up, deliver simple, digitally empowered solutions. Second, ensure immediate, real-time resolution to their problems. Nobody wants to wait anymore. Third, maintain a consistent omni-channel experience. If a customer emails and then calls a few minutes later, our reps must instantly know that conversation history across all platforms. And fourth, commit to continuous reinvention. This requires a deeply cross-functional approach to ensure both speed and efficiency. Which brings us to the heavy lifting phase of our blueprint. Section 3, shifting to emergent architecture. It is time for dismantling the monolithic legacy. Unifying that customer experience requires serious heavy lifting under the hood. We have to fundamentally contrast our legacy systems with the future. The old way, That was building a monolithic end-state architecture, a massive, rigid structure that we viewed as a problem to be solved and entirely finished. The new reality is agile emergent architecture. Utilizing microservices, the cloud, and API-based integrations, architecture is no longer an end state that you just complete. Instead, it's a living, breathing foundation that you continuously make progress on, built fundamentally around the customer lifecycle. But here's the catch. Agile technology is completely useless without agile teams. Traditional organizations operate in silos. They're isolated by functions, business units, and geographies. We all know the friction and bottlenecks this creates when you're trying to build cross-functional momentum. It's incredibly painful. To win today, we absolutely must transition to a borderless organization. By aggressively breaking down these internal borders, we unite our teams around customer-centric, high-velocity problem-solving. Now for the hardest part. Section 4, rewiring legacy organizational culture. This is, without a doubt, the most fundamental roadblock. As leaders, we just have to acknowledge a really hard truth here. We can buy the absolute best cloud infrastructure in the world, but the way we do things here, our culture, is the most fundamental roadblock to digital transformation. It is vastly harder to change than any piece of technology. Just look at the shift required. Moving from infrequent, weekend-ruining software updates to daily release cycles is a massive shock to a legacy enterprise. It requires unlearning old, deeply embedded habits. Or let's look at talent. Instead of static hiring, we need to create a small, highly upgraded talent pool that creates a powerful gravitational pull for the rest of the organization. And agility, it's not just about paying for some agile software tool. It's about building in true organizational agility. This is a massive change management process that requires bringing the entire enterprise along for the ride. Finally, Section 5, leading through unpredictable shocks. We need to talk about the new dynamics of executive leadership. Ultimately, driving that cultural change, that falls completely on us. As CIOs and executives, we know that leadership is the absolute starting point for this entire transformation. We carry the personal burden of driving this from the top down. Digital transformation completely redefines what it means to lead. The new leader profile requires us to be technology natives and proactive visionaries who can harness tectonic technological shifts well before they disrupt us. We've got to be relentless change agents and customer-obsessed organization builders. But perhaps most importantly in a VUCA world, we must be resilient shock absorbers. We need the capacity to absorb, adapt to, and learn from the inevitable market shocks that are guaranteed to come our way. To sum all of this up, the execution gap we see out there in the market today isn't actually a technology failure, it's a transformation failure. Bridging the gap between the massive potential of digital investments and their actual real-world business impact requires us to fundamentally redesign our organization's design, our internal culture, and our leadership. Technology is really only one piece of the puzzle. True success goes to those who can drive transformation across all these multiple levels simultaneously. So I want to leave you with one final provocative question to really reflect on as you evaluate your own organization's resilience. As you look at your strategy, your IT architecture, and your team's culture, are you still trying to build a static end state, or are you truly designing an emergent future? Thank you so much for joining this explainer.